You are listening to the Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane.
It's just gone 13 minutes after 7 on this Tuesday. Let's move on to this story. The Hawks have confirmed the launch of 4 high treason investigations against groupings and individuals that they are not naming at this stage, but are believed and understood to be AfriForum, Solidarity and their leaders. The cases stem from allegations that the organizations spread misleading information in the United States about South Africa's Expropriation Act and other policies. Let's welcome into the conversation Dr. Llewellyn Curlewis of the Department of Procedural Law at the University of Pretoria. Doc, good morning and thank you for your time. The leaders of AfriForum and Solidarity are saying that they are not losing any sleep about these investigations. Should they be?
No, they should not. In actual fact, I was also surprised when I was informed that the Hawks are actually investigating this the so-called treason issue. If only the Hawks invested so much time and effort into state capture cases where there are actually crimes committed, then we will all be on a better place. That being said, one must remember that high treason is a crime against the state and can only be prosecuted in the High Court, no other court. So it's a serious offence. From there, the jurisdictional limitations set by our courtrooms. It is obviously a common law crime. And there are various definitions of the crime. One regularly used, maybe just for your listeners' sake, is that a person commits high treason if owing allegiance to the Republic of South Africa and then also unlawfully engages in conduct within or outside the country where there's an overthrowing intent. And obviously, sometimes also coercing the government into a violence state of some sort. So, in short, it is not possible to name and mention all the possible acts that will constitute the crime of treason, but the key element is allegiance. So, however innocent an act may, on face value, look, the ultimate question is whether there are some kind of a hostile intent. If not, well, then there's no treason at all.
So would the case, and we're very far off from any kind of trial playing itself out, that's if we will even get there, but would a case, if it does get there, hinge and turn on the question of intent? Would the question then be, yes, AfriForum and Solidarity undertook these trips to the United States and said the things that they said about South Africa, but did they have, in undertaking all of that, the intent of achieving any of those things that you listed, overthrowing the government, coercing government into inaction or, action one way or another through violence, etc.?
Well, the determining factor, as I said, was the presence of a hostile intent, which is more than just a subjective element of what we traditionally know as the elements of guilt, but indeed forms part of the definitional elements of the crime, so-called, the Romans and Roman Dutch refer to it as animus hostilis. In other words, the accused must have had the intention to overthrow the state. So therefore, an act of violence is not necessarily required, but the fact of the matter is if the 4 accused, for example, plotted to conspire with the United States, and if the United States was at that stage or at this stage an external enemy of South Africa, ready to attack the country, then it would definitely have been treason. But the fact of the matter is the ethos of our political expression necessitate a strict and narrow interpretation of these crimes. Otherwise, Section 34(5) of our Constitution would have been a useless section in our Constitution. I mean, this section guarantees freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, freedom to participate in political activities. But also, in addition to that, there must be some form of unlawfulness. In a constitutional democracy, as South Africa is, it is not treason to belong to a political opposition of the government, or even to work for the replacement of such a government. Otherwise, all of our political leaders across the board would have been guilty of this alleged treason that they are now accused of.
So, Doc, from that definition that you sort of outlined at the start, let me tease out something with you. Just looking at the definition, and I'm wondering if an eager prosecutor could not be able to make the argument around. You and I agree that there's been some kind of conduct one way or another. Its unlawfulness could perhaps be debated at a later stage in a court of law. But could there be no argument made by an eager prosecutor, quite zealous in carrying out their tasks, that the conduct we are talking about had the effect, and I'm quoting now from the definition, the effect of threatening or endangering not the existence but the independence or security of the republic? That part of the definition. Is there no case that can be made there that says, you know very well that the United States has not hesitated to intervene in a number of countries, and you went there and your actions have had the effect of threatening at the very least the independence of the republic or its security?
Fortunately, we have case law that suggests what is to be considered as a hostile intention. I mean, there are the case of Banda and others, the 1989 decision. There was the case of Zwane. The Boeramag trial is another example, because that's the only post-apartheid court case that have ever encountered so-called acts of treason. And if one looks at all these court cases and analyzes it, I'm not convinced that there has been there's cases to be made out to comply with the elements of the crime. I mean, in short, one must remember that this is a relatively vague, let's call it then, act of that we are talking about here, or even misconduct, which violates the legality principle of Section 35 of our Constitution, at least on two aspects. Some scholars would say it's an outdated crime, first of all. The second one is the balancing act in comparison to our constitutional principles of having a democracy where freedom of expression is also part of it. I'm not convinced that they went out of their way to necessarily try to overthrow the government. Remember, we must not confuse high treason with crimes like sedition, public violence, terrorism, and so on. So maybe one of those charges could be considered by such a prosecutor, and even then, I'm not convinced that they will make out a case. I'm concerned that the NPA might sit with a red face if they pursue such crimes and ultimately get an acquittal. That will be counterproductive.
Doc, hold on for me a second. Let me bring in one of our listeners into the conversation. Kabelo in Durban, good morning to you. You want to weigh in on this conversation?
Yes, morning, Tulas. How are you?
Very well. How are you?
I think that gentleman there, it doesn't think properly.
No. Kabelo, pause. Respectfully, let's engage with Dr. Curlewis. Yes. Don't withdraw your sentiment in terms of your thoughts about what he's had to say, but I think let's avoid saying that he doesn't think properly. Let's keep the courtesy. But go ahead.
Okay. Now, first and foremost, what is a treason? The AfriForum has traveled all the way from South Africa to United States to complain about the laws of the country. Is that not a betrayal? Did they exhaust any internal processes within the country? To not do that. Now, I'm surprised if the doctor does not see the wrongdoing of the AfriForum to go and say, what if the AfriForum went there and told us, let us demand what was discussed on that meeting. What if the AfriForum has discussed, we know that how did they came in our country? They moved our black people and took their land forcefully. What if they are planning to do it again, as they said, make South Africa great again? Now, what if Tulas tomorrow I go to Russia or I go to Burkina Faso and say, can you come and assist me to remove these white racist people from our land so that our people, they can enjoy their land without these racist people that they came from Netherlands?
Kabelo, let's leave it there. Dr. Curlewis, a lot said there. Your response?
Yes, I want to respond there. Well, I can understand the sentiments of the public of South Africa and its people, but one must understand that a moral betrayal or alleged moral betrayal does not constitute high treason. There's a huge difference. I mean, high treason is a crime that there are certain elements to be complied with. And like I said, that have not been complied with. So please do understand that there's a huge difference between morality, moral issues, so-called betrayal, and then the crime that the Hawks currently investigate.
Absolutely.
The two must not be confused.
All right. Thank you for your time this morning, Dr. Llewellyn Curlewis of the Department of Procedural Law at the University of Pretoria.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele Legal